Chapter 2, Pilgrims and Indians. As they walked to school that morning, Kit told her best friend Ruthie about changing her wish for Dad. The girls huddled under Ruthie's umbrella. They ignored Sterling, who trailed along behind them like a puny, pitiful puppy. I didn't realize the wish had to be so specific, said Kit. Oh yes, said Ruthie. You have to be very careful what you say in a wish. Otherwise it'll come true, but not the way you meant it to. That happens a lot in fairy tales. Ruthie had read hundreds of fairy tales because she was interested in princesses. Also, you usually have to work hard to deserve a wish to come true. You have to do something brave or impossible or make a giant noble sacrifice, and you have to wait. Wishes take time, years in some cases. Thanksgiving's only 2 weeks from now, said Kit. I'm afraid that if Dad doesn't get a job here by then, he'll go away to Chicago. Chicago, repeated Ruthie. He might as well go to the moon. I don't want Dad to leave, said Kit. I want the boarders to leave. Ruthie tugged on one of the straps of Kit's book bag and tilted her head towards Sterling. Kit realized that once again she'd spoken without thinking. She was pretty sure that Sterling already knew she wanted him and the other boarders to leave. Still, it wasn't nice to say so in front of him. Kit wouldn't have if she remembered that he was there. He was just so invisible. All morning at school, Kit tried not to think about how awful it would be to watch the boarders sitting around the table gobbling Thanksgiving turkey if she knew that Dad was going to leave. She could hardly bear listening to Roger, a show-offy boy in her class, answer a question about the first Thanksgiving that their teacher, Mr. Fisher, had asked. The first Thanksgiving was in 1621, said Roger. The Pilgrims invited the Indians to a feast to celebrate their successful harvest. We have turkey at Thanksgiving because the Pilgrims served the Indians 4 wild turkeys, and we call it Thanksgiving because the Indians were thankful to the Pilgrims for being generous and sharing their food. Kit couldn't stand it. She shot her hand up into the air and waved it. Yes, Kit, said Mr. Fisher. Roger's got the story backwards, said Kit. It's called Thanksgiving because the Pilgrims gave a feast to thank the Indians. Roger snorted. Kit wasn't the least bit intimidated by Roger. The Pilgrims would have starved to death if it weren't for the Indians, she said. The Indians taught the Pilgrims to plant corn and gave them supplies and help. I think that was pretty nice of the Indians, considering that the Pilgrims had barged into their land into their land where they'd been living happily by themselves for a long time. As Kit spoke, she realized that this year, more than ever before, she had tremendous sympathy for the Indians. She knew how it felt to have a bunch of strangers living with you and eating your food and expecting your help when you didn't want them there in the first place. Kit shot her hand up into the air and waved it. Well, said Mr. Fisher. Thank you, Kit. It made Kit feel a little better to please Mr. Fisher. She liked him, but they had gotten off on the wrong foot the first day of school when Mr. Fisher called on Kit to read aloud in reading group. Kit hadn't known what page they were on because she read ahead and was busy thinking of better endings to the stories. Mr. Fisher was cross with her then, but he was happy with her now. Kit makes a good point, he said. The Indians took pity on the Pilgrims and shared what little they had. It's important to help both friends and strangers when times are hard. We see this all around us today because of the Depression. Who can give me examples of ways that our families and friends and neighbors are helping one another and strangers too? When hobos come to our back door, said Ruthie, my mother always gives them sandwiches and coffee. At our church, there's a box of old shoes for people to take if they need them, said a boy named Tom. My cousin sent me a winter coat she had outgrown, said a girl named Mabel. Kit was surprised to see Sterling raise his hand. He'd almost never done so before. Sterling was new to the class and the school because he had moved into Kit's house only last summer. He didn't know anyone but Kit and Ruthie, and he was so quiet he was easy to forget. Sometimes people get kicked out of their house because they can't pay the rent, Sterling said in his deep voice that always surprised Kit, coming as it did from such a pipsqueak. And friends are nice and invite them to live in their house with them. Oh, so that's why you live with Kit, brayed Roger. I thought you two were married. The class snickered as Roger made kissing noises. Sterling slouched at his seat. Kit shook her fist at Roger, but she was mad at Sterling too. Sterling should have kept his mouth shut, she thought. That will do, Roger, said Mr. Fisher. I'll wait for quiet, boys and girls. He waited until the snickering stopped, then asked, who can give me more examples of how we're helping one another? Soup kitchens serve free meals to people who can't buy food, said a girl named Dorothy. And some soup kitchens also give people groceries to take home to their families. Yes, said Mr. Fisher. Now, as you all know, Thanksgiving is coming soon. I like our class to do its part to help the hungry. So if you can, please bring in an item of food. It doesn't have to be anything big. An apple or a potato will do. I know most of us don't have much food to spare. But if we all chip in, we can make a Thanksgiving basket and donate it to a soup kitchen. The students murmured among themselves, but without much enthusiasm. They'd all seen soup kitchens with long lines of people waiting outside them. Kit had once seen a man in a soup line faint on the street from hunger. She knew that soup kitchens were for people who had been without work for so long that they had no money or hope or pride left, and who were so desperate that they had to accept free food. My father says that people who go to soup kitchens should be ashamed, said Roger, full of bluster. They're bums. They're not bums, said Ruthie. Most of them are perfectly nice, normal people who happen to be down on their luck. I think we should feel sorry for them. My father said they're just too lazy to work, said Roger. And now that Franklin Roosevelt's been elected, people will expect the government to take care of them. My father says it'll ruin our country. Kit grew hot under the collar listening to Roger and thinking of how hard Dad was trying to find a job. People aren't too lazy to work, she said. They'd work if they could find a job, but jobs are hard to find. Mr. Fisher nodded. Right here in Cincinnati, he said, 1 out of 3 workers is unemployed, which means they don't have a job. 1 out of 3. What a fraction is that? 1/3, said Tom. That's correct, said Mr. Fisher. 1 out of 3? Thought Kit. Unemployment was a lot worse than she thought. Just for a shivery second, her absolute confidence that Dad would find a job in Cincinnati was shaken a little bit. Maybe he really would have to go to Chicago. Then Kit spoke to herself firmly. No, she thought. Dad is different. He will find a job. Any day now. He said so. These are hard times, said Mr. Fisher. That's why it's especially important to remember the example of the Indians and the Pilgrims. We all have friends and relatives who are struggling to make ends meet. This year, many of us will have to do without some of the things we've had in years past. But Mr. Fisher, Mabel asked, we're still going to have a Thanksgiving pageant this year, aren't we? Yes, of course, said Mr. Fisher. Another class buzzed with excitement. Everyone loved the pageant. Mr. Fisher crossed his arms. I need your attention, boys and girls, he said. The children shushed one another, and Mr. Fisher continued. The 6th graders will be the Pilgrims, he said. The 5th graders will be the Indians. Our 4th grade is responsible for the scenery. Mr. Fisher held up a drawing. Here's a drawing on the backdrop we'll paint. The drawing showed 4 giant turkeys and a huge cornucopia with fruits and vegetables spilling out. The turkeys' feathers were all different colors, and they were not just painted on. They were made out of bits of paper cut to look like real feathers, and they were glued onto the turkeys. That's good, said Tom. Yes, it is, isn't it? Said Mr. Fisher. Who drew it? Asked Dorothy. Sterling, said Mr. Fisher. Everyone twisted around to stare at Sterling. For the second time that day, Sterling slouched down in his seat. But this time, no one was snickering. Everyone, including Kit, was gaping at Sterling in astonishment. At lunch, Ruthie said, Sterling is really good at drawing, isn't he, Kit? Kit shrugged. I guess so, she said. She was still annoyed with Sterling for speaking in class and embarrassing her in front of everybody. Shh, said Dorothy. Here he comes now. Sterling was walking toward Kit, his knickers ballooning out over his his spindly legs. Kit and Sterling had to share a lunch tin, and every day Sterling came over to the girls' side of the lunchroom to get a sandwich from Kit. Usually the girls at the table completely ignored Sterling, but today, when he came over, several girls squeaked, "Hi, Sterling." Sterling blushed pinker than ever. "Hi," he mumbled. He took his sandwich and scuttled back to the boys' side. Unfortunately, Roger had spotted Sterling with Kit. He began to whistle, "Here comes the bride." Kit glowered at Roger, who batted his eyelashes at her across the lunchroom. "Hey, Kit," said Ruthie, trying to distract her. "Good news. There's some wood left over from our new garage. My father said that you and I can use it for a treehouse." "That's great," said Kit. She had been sketching tree houses and hoping to build one ever since she read Robin Hood. She loved the tree houses that Robin and his men built high in the branches of the trees in Sherwood Forest. Kit knew her family had absolutely no money to spend on something as unnecessary as wood for a tree house. So it was lucky that Ruthie's father, who still had a job, was giving away the leftover wood. "I was thinking," said Ruthie, "you know how your treehouse sketches haven't ever really turned out very well?" "Yes," Kit admitted honestly. "Well, why don't we ask Sterling to draw a plan for us?" Asked Ruthie. "No," Kit said. "Gosh, Ruthie, if we let him plant a treehouse for us, but when it's built, he'll want to come in it, and we'll have to let him. He's already invaded my real house. I don't want him in our treehouse too." Okay, said Ruthie. "Don't get all worked up. The treehouse doesn't even exist yet." "I'll ask Dad to help us," said Kit. "He loves building things." "Sure," said Ruthie. She grinned. "And I'll be so busy building our treehouse, he'll forget all about going away." Kit grinned back. "Right," she said. "How soon can we get that wood?"